Okay, hello everyone, wherever you are. My name is Mady. I'm the host of this live talk where every week I invite people from different countries all over the world to share about their journey, their story as the digital business owner. And for this week, we have special guest from Canada. Let's welcome Alan. Hi, Alan. How are you?
Hello, Mady. How are you?
Yes, I'm good. Thank you. Happy Saturday. Happy weekend.
And likewise to you. I hear that it's quite late in you're in Indonesia, right?
Yes. We
In
are
Jakarta,
like
yeah.
11 hours different. Yeah,
Yeah, no, here it's just getting morning. It's 10 in the morning, and there I understand it's 11 o'clock at night.
correct. But it's really good to meet you here. Yeah.
Yes, well I'll try not to keep you too long so that you can go to bed.
It's okay.
Hello everybody.
Yeah, so Alan, I will start with the first question. I have heard about your story, your amazing journey as a person, and also before you start this business. So for people that who don't know you yet, could you please tell about yourself, your background to them? Yes, please.
Sure thing, matey. My name's Alan White. I'm from Old Alberta, Canada, and I'm a little bit over 50 years old, just a little bit. And I've been self-employed my whole life. From the time I was 14 years old in 1973 until 2012, Maria and my wife and I owned a architectural design, build, real estate, construction contracting business. And I started with my two German uncles when I was 14. I was just kind of helping them for free. And so when I
Mm,
got to be about 16 years old, I
mm,
realized one day, they should be paying me some money to do this. I shouldn't be doing this for free. And so I said to my uncle Clem, and he said, "Oh, yes, Alan." He said, "If you're interested in the business," he said, "we'll teach you." My uncle Clem was a master journeyman carpenter, and my uncle Joe, his brother, was just a journeyman carpenter. So that's who I learned from. I later, when I graduated from high school, I went on to college and I got my formal training in
mm,
construction contracting. And then I apprenticed under my two uncles for years and years. And in 1982, I then figured out, well, I don't know if I figured out, but I had a bright idea in my coconut that maybe real estate was also a good idea to run hand in hand with the design, build, construction contracting. Design and build on one hand and sell on the other hand. So, anyway, in 1982, I bought a Century 21 franchise. Back in those days, I paid $25,000 just for the franchise, nothing else. And that got me the rights to use the Century 21 name.
yeah.
But that was all. That was the only thing that I got for my 25 grand. So it took me probably 10 years to build the Century 21 business up. Um, and after that, the reason that I got Century 21 was because they were a training office. They were known the world over as
Yeah.
offering the best training, bar none. And so in 10 years' time, I sold my Century 21 office. I had built it up, and I was making money with it, and making some good commissions. And similarly with our construction, design, build, construction business, we had architects that worked for us, and they would design projects, everything from farm buildings to
Mm,
brand new houses, and then the construction side would go and build the project, and
mm,
Maria and me would
I see.
run the show. And I also, because I was a journeyman, well, later I became a master journeyman, but uh, at the time I was a journeyman, so I also spent a lot of time in the field, matey. I was kind of the chief cook and bottle washer. I was the foreman. I was the boss, I was the worker, I was just about everything. So anyway, in 1982, that was when I decided that it was time to slow down just a little bit, because I'd been at it since 1973. So keep in mind that is a number of years, and construction is a very, very hard life. And so anyway, in 1992, I sold the Century 21 franchise and I bought an NRS, National Real Estate Service franchise. And I ran that right till 2012 with my construction design build business. And in 2012, Maria and me encountered the fourth economic recession. And we'd been through one about every 10 years, in the 80s, the 90s, and then again in 2012, and prior to that, there was one in the late 70s, or no, I guess it was the early 80s where the National Energy Program came in. Anyway, I said to Maria in 2012, I said, you know what, that's enough of this. And plus, I wasn't getting any younger. I had aches and pains in places that I didn't even know that I had muscles. And so I said to Maria, I said, we've got to find something more my age and something lighter to do. And so we sort of slowly shut the business down. I'm still a general construction contractor in 2021, but I am not very active. I pick and choose my jobs very, very carefully. And I do only the lighter stuff. I don't do the heavy grunt work. My upper body's fine, but from my waist down, my back, my knees, my hips, those are all starting to play out. So anyway, I said to Maria, we've got to find something more my age and something a whole lot less labor intensive. And so at that point, it took us a year or so to wind our construction business down, and in 2010, we bought a condo in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, right on the ocean. So, our plan was to retire in Mexico and live and listen to the ocean and enjoy the sunshine. In Puerto Vallarta, in the winter months, which is typically from here in Alberta, is from November through till the following April. The temperatures in Puerto Vallarta are plus 26 degrees Celsius, and it's sunny every day. You never see a raindrop. So anyway, our idea was to have this retirement home and eventually move there and live in Vallarta in the winter months and in Olds, Alberta, Canada on our acreage in the summer months. And that, when we decided in 2012 to slow down, I'm going to say slow down, not shut down, although we pretty much did shut down the construction business, we turned to the internet. And I said to Maria, I said, there's got to be something that we can do with the internet. There's so much nowadays that's being done on the internet. There's online banking, there's booking airline flights, there's booking hotel rooms, there's booking food, even finding love and a mate. It's done online. So my logic was, well, if all those things can be done online perfectly and seamlessly, like you know yourself, maybe you've probably got online banking, and you click a few computer keys and boom, you're in your bank account. Yeah. You can pay your bills, you can transfer money, you can do, and it works 100% seamlessly and perfectly. So my logic was this. I said to Maria, I said, in my head, it seems to me that if all these other things can work so well using the internet, then why can't we earn a living using the internet? I said, that would be great. We would sit in our office or our home. At the time, we still had our office. We had a building with, excuse me, with probably 15 or 16 offices in it, because we were a big construction company at one point in time. And the problem with these recessions was, we'd build up and save up, millions of dollars, and all of a sudden, boom, along would come a recession. and down the toilet everything would go, and we would have to spend all the money that we saved in order to bail ourselves out and save the company. And so that was why, we got fed up with it. And I said to Maria, I said, that's enough. Like, let's do something different. So anyway, that's a bit about my history and how I came to look to the internet to earn a living. And that's a whole nother story.
Okay, it's very good story. So when I heard about this, so you already an experienced business owner. I mean, you own your business, you start your own business, the designer, construction, and you also bought the franchise from the Century 21. It's a very well known brand, yeah, for the real estate all over the world. So and that's make my next question. So with your experience with the business as the and as the business owner, why then you choose this digital business? What made you confident?
I sort of touched on it, maybe. The main reason was, there was 3 or 4 reasons. Number one was the economic recession. I mean, we're retired of going through 4 recessions, and so as I said, I said to my wife, I said, honey, that's enough of this. Like, this is ridiculous. Yeah. We work our tails off, save up a bunch of money in the hopes that maybe we can go to the condo in Vallarta and live there. And then all of a sudden, boom. So that was reason number 1. Reason number 2 was that I was, as I said, I was getting older and stiff in the joints from my waist down. My upper body's still fine. I mean, my hands work good. My brain works good. Thank God.
You can also talking.
Yeah, exactly, mate. And so number 2 reason was, my lower body, my back and my hips and my knees, and I mean, getting down is fine. It's getting back up that's the hard part. I almost need a cane to get back up, or a chair to hold on to. So anyway, that was reason number 2. I was wearing out. Honest to God, I was wearing out my poor old back. And reason number 3 was that, we wanted something more my age. I was tired of running a big company, and I was tired of being the boss. I was tired of the day-to-day hustle that it takes to run a successful brick and mortar company. And, I mean, at one point, and this was earlier on, but at one point we had 160 employees. So, that is a lot of people. And, you got to listen to everybody's complaints and everybody's moaning and groaning and excuses why they couldn't make it to work. And my alarm clock didn't go off. My coffee pot didn't make coffee. I mean, I've heard every excuse here. And so honestly, matey, reason number 3, and in no particular order, I'm just giving you the 3 main reasons, was that, I was tired of listening to all that stuff. I mean, good gravy. Some days are golden. Some days are golden, like everything goes like clockwork. And other days are just a disaster, like a complaint after complaint and problem after problem. So, in the long and the short was those were my 3 reasons for looking for something different.
Okay, yeah, it's good. So I'm really happy that this digital business perfectly fit to your age. Yeah, so it's like age friendly, right? This digital business, and also you mentioned about the operational cost from your previous company. With the problems coming from the employees, etc. So yeah, this digital business, you can get rid of this operational cost, and also like a problem coming from the labor, right? Okay, so at the time when you start this digital business, do you think there is any formal education needed, like in construction? You have you need to learn about the design or something like that, but how about in digital business at the time? Do you think you need special skill or formal education to start this business?
Excuse me, Mary. No, not really. I mean, there's a few qualities that a
Mhm.
person should possess. Number one, first of all, before I get into that, here's something to keep in the back of your mind. Anybody who's watching, anybody can do this business. Anybody. Now, is it for everybody? No, of course not. Horseback riding isn't for everybody. Canoeing isn't for everybody. Mountain climbing isn't for everybody. But the point is that anybody could do any of those things. So that's the first thing to keep in the back of your mind. Number two is that, skepticism is okay because this is new, maybe, because this is fairly new. I remember the dawning of the internet. I remember the dawning of Facebook. I remember the dawning of Google, the huge search engine that, now the world's biggest search engine. But I remember the days when Google was this big. They were tiny, tiny, tiny. And so coming up with all of those things are advances in technology. And so what you need for education is virtually nothing. I mean, I know high school dropouts that are acing this business, maybe. I mean, they are succeeding beyond anybody's wildest dreams. Now, I also know lawyers and police officers and doctors and nurses by the dozen. Like I have a number of Filipina friends, and right now we have a Filipina caregiver for my mom. My mom is 85, has Parkinson's, and the poor thing, God bless her. She's worked hard her whole life, and so we brought a Filipina from the Philippines to look after mom. My point is that I have all sorts of Filipina friends who were caregivers because that is their specialty. They are so good at that. They're such caring, loving individuals. But for the most part, for the most part, I'm not saying everybody, but for the most part, they're not university educated. They had to go to college and take a caregiving course. Like Josie, my mom's caregiver, for example, she has a little certificate saying that she's a qualified caregiver, and God bless her. She's just the most kind and compassionate and patient lady that you'll ever meet in your life. So literally there are hundreds of Filipinas, for example, who have left the caregiving business, in hospitals, in nursing homes, in private homes, in all sorts of scenarios and circumstances, who now are in our internet business. Now, one other thing that you need to know, Mady, is that before Maria and I found this business, we've been in this business nearly 4 years, the business that you and I are interviewing about right now. But before we found this business in 2017, in July, Maria and I tried a number of other online ventures. And with the exception of the very first one that I got burned on, I was my own stupid fault. I didn't do my due diligence, and I got hung for $40,000 on the very first one in 2012. But after that, I woke up and gave myself a slap and said, "Hey, you, pay attention." So anyway, we tried a number of things, but we were always looking, Mady. We were always looking for, and I refer to it to Maria as the golden unicorn. We were looking for the golden unicorn. We knew that it existed. We just hadn't found it yet. And some of the things that we tried where I'm not real proud of this, mind you, so don't broadcast this to millions of people. I'm kidding. We tried Isogenics. We tried Party Light candles. We tried Tupperware. We tried Primerica. And most recently, we tried Amazon. We had an Amazon store. Now, what I'm going to tell you is that from 2012 to 2017, all of those businesses, with the exception of the very first one, that one we won't even go into because that's a whole story in itself. Those people were criminals, and they conned me. They took my money, and they're in jail now, but that doesn't do me any good. They still got away with my $40,000. So notwithstanding that one, Mady, all of the other businesses that Maria and I, online, digital businesses that Maria and I tried along the way to getting to this business, I call those stepping stones. Those
True.
were um, those were learning curves and getting our feet
Yeah.
wet, and learning about social media and learning about all kinds of things. And anyway, everyone, like I said, with the exception of the first one, was perfectly
Mhm.
legitimate. Every one we made some money on. So, if someone is in Amazon right now, I
Yeah.
mean, they might want to stay there. That's what I said. Anybody can do our business, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it is for everybody. And so in July of 2017, yes, 2017, Maria
Mhm.
and I, excuse me, Betty, Maria and
Yeah.
I found this business quite by accident. We were
Mhm.
working on my Amazon store, and I said to her, let's take a little break, honey, and go on to Facebook or LinkedIn. I forget. Like we've had accounts with these people, these social media platforms, since the dawning of the internet. Like I've had a Facebook account since, in fact, my Facebook account number, my original one, was 70,481. So at that time, there was only 70,000 people that were on Facebook. Now there's like 4 billion
Billion.
or 3
Yeah.
billion, you know. So it just shows you that now, I'm not saying that I'm really super old. I'm a little bit over 50.
With wiser. 40
Exactly,
with
exactly. Yeah, but what I am
more
saying is
wisdom.
that,
Mhm.
that the, these various things that we tried along the way were
Mhm.
learning curves for us. And when we found this
Yeah.
business, we bumped into a sponsored ad, maybe that popped up in my news feed, and I think it was either Facebook or LinkedIn. I don't remember which. But anyway, the ad went on to say something along the lines of, "Would you like to have your time back? Would you like to have freedom? Would you like to, make an above average income?" It was nothing extravagant, just very,
Yeah.
very basic. And then it went on to say, if you'd like to find out more, attend a complimentary webinar. So we
Yeah.
did, and the interesting part is that Maria, my wife, she was a little more skeptical than me because we had been burned once, and Maria's
Mhm.
always been kind of, I refer to myself as the horse, and I refer to her as the rider. Like I get galloping,
Mhm.
I go 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 go, and Maria goes, "Whoa, slow down."
Okay.
So anyway, when I watched the webinar the first time, was on a Tuesday, and I said to Maria, I said, "Wow, this is it. I have found my golden unicorn." And she said, "Well, I trust your good judgment." I said, "No, honey, you've got to watch this with me. It's offered again on Thursday." And this was on a
Mm.
Tuesday. But the interesting part, matey, was that, Mike and Darren and Leanne at the time were doing the presentation. And Mike said, "Give me a couple of minutes to switch my camera around so you can see my slides." And he did his presentation. And then at the halfway point was 6 people, ordinary people just like you and me, who gave their little testimonial. And
Mhm.
so, that was what sold me on it. Like I listened to these people and they were saying, we started this business a year ago and yada yada yada. And again, nothing boastful, nothing extravagant, just they were enjoying life and
Mm.
making a very, very good income along the way. Like, well, I'm not going to say the income amounts, but I can tell you, for example, one of the first interviews that I watched was my coach, Garrett Jensen, and Jill, his wife. And let's just say this: they make 7 digits income.
Yeah.
So that this business is genuine and legitimate. And Chris and Karen McCullum were another couple that I saw doing their little testimonial. But anyway, Maria agreed that we would both watch it on the Thursday, and so we did. And there was 6 new people, maybe
Mhm.
it was. So I knew that it wasn't paid actors. I knew that it wasn't people that were hired to come on and give a really good story or a sales pitch. I knew it was genuine. And so anyway, when Maria watched it on Thursday, I said to her, "So what do you think, honey?" And she said, "Well, I trust your good judgment, Alan. You know me. I'm a little bit skeptical, and if it seems too good to be true, sometimes it is." And I'm going, "Yes, I know that." I said, "All right, I'll back down a little bit." I said, "Let's watch it again on Tuesday, because it's offered every Thursday and every Tuesday, or every Tuesday and every Thursday. Sorry." And so I watched it again on Tuesday, and I'll be danged if there wasn't 6 different individuals giving their testimonial at the halfway point. The first part was the same, maybe like the Mike part, with doing his little presentation and his yada yada yada, and yeah, the technical information and the pluses and the don'ts and the do's and what you get and everything. But the testimonials, there was 6 different people. And so I said to Maria on Tuesday, I said, "Honey, we have to do this." She said, "Well, I'm going to trust your good judgment, but I don't want to get involved." And I'm going, "You don't? You've been with me your whole life. You and I have been involved in everything together." And she went, "Well, yeah, but I still don't 100% trust it." And I said, "Well, honey, that's okay." I said, I'm going to watch the webinar again on Thursday." So now, maybe I've watched it Tuesday, Thursday, Tuesday, and then I watched it again the following Thursday. And there was 6 more different individuals. And you know what? I said to Maria, I said, "We are doing this." And so we opted in. And honestly, we haven't looked back since. It's been, there's been some bumps along the road and some challenges, some difficulties. And like what you were saying about education, I've got a university education. I've got a master's degree, but there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. In fact, I would say maybe even thousands of people who don't have anything super special. They are just everyday people like you and me, maybe. And don't get me wrong, I'm not discrediting you in the education department. Probably you're a very, very well educated young lady. But what I'm saying is that, just people who have got a full-time job elsewhere, and they're doing this business. For Maria and me, we jumped into it full time. And when I watched, by the way, when I watched it on Thursday, she said, "Well, okay, I guess I'm going to get involved." And so then, sometime after that, a couple of years in 2019, she went to, let me think, 2019, yes. In October of 2019, she went to Mexico, and she's been there ever since because the pandemic struck in 2020. Maria went down originally for a little holiday, and then I said to her, "Well, honey, you go, and I'll join you after Christmas." And so she got stuck there, and she's been there ever since. So I'm in Canada, my wife is in Mexico, but we're still happily married. But to answer your question, Mady, no, one does not need any special education. Skills, yes, you definitely need patience. You need persistence. You need consistency. You need insistence. In other words, no, I'm not going to take no for an answer. I'm going to do this. I am going to succeed. You need belief, for sure, faith, and you need passion. Those are the only qualities that you need. And most of those, Mady, are learned skills. They're not hereditary skills is what I mean by that. Most of those we can learn. Like, we can learn to be passionate about something. When you were, I'm assuming you're married, when you were a young lady and you met your flame, you became passionate about the relationship, but that was something that grew. It wasn't something that was a hereditary thing. And similarly with this business, the six factors that I mentioned, one can learn. I know all kinds of people that were petrified of going on camera, that, they were scared to death. And little by little, they built up their confidence. And now they're just as comfortable on camera as you and me. But anyway, sorry, I'm babbling onward here, and I should let you speak.
That's okay because yeah, the purpose is to hear about your story actually and to share to the audience. And so yeah, you mentioned before about the webinar. So would you like to encourage people who are watching this about the webinar because they have to passionate enough to start by watching this free webinar? And you mentioned about this free webinar live every Tuesday and Thursday, Canada time maybe, but in Jakarta it's Wednesday and Friday, 7 a.m.
Ah,
in the
okay.
morning. Yes,
Yeah, yeah,
yes.
yeah. No, that's fine, Mary, because you're across the international date line in Jakarta, I guess, huh? Yeah, you're a
Correct.
day ahead of us. No, excuse me. The if anybody's interested in finding out more, I mean, there's nothing lost by taking a look. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain. It's that simple.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing that you have, and I don't even consider it a loss. The only thing that you need to invest is about 90 minutes of your time to watch the webinar. And at the very least, when it's over, when once you've watched the webinar, you have the choice of saying it's for me or it's not for me. And if it's not for you, you simply move on, maybe. Nothing ventured, nothing lost, not a thing at risk. There is no scam, there's no con
Yeah.
job, there's no trickery, there's no deceitfulness. It is plain and simple, just like you and me sitting here talking, Betty. And the only difference is that you sit on your computer and you watch Mike and Darren and the panel do the webinar, do the presentation. And then you say to yourself, well, I want to watch this again, because you can watch it as many times as you like. But it's offered, as you said, in Jakarta on Wednesday and Friday. Here in Canada and in the western part of the hemisphere, it's Tuesday and Thursday. It is, for those who want to know, it is offered at 5 p.m. Pacific time, always the same time, 5 p.m. Pacific time, Tuesdays and Thursdays. And like I said,
Nice.
there is no pressure. There's nobody holding a gun to your head saying, yeah, you got to sign up or you got to join this business. No, it's totally voluntary. It's totally your choice, maybe. And so
True.
that, above all that we talked about in the previous
Yeah.
little segment, was, number one is the freedom of choice. You choose whether or not you want to join our business. That's simple.
True. Okay, thank you. And before we close this live talk, because that was my last question, let's say hi to people who are watching. Yeah, we have Debbie. Debbie is from Germany, living in Germany, and she also has or run his own construction company, and now she's doing this business as well.
Yeah.
And hi, Julie. Yeah, Julie is living in Italy. Julie said that yeah, this business is for anyone. Yeah, they have. I mean, people can learn from the training system, and yeah, it's really doable. True. Okay, so that makes uh, I mean, I will say thank you for your time,
Well,
Alan.
it's my extreme pleasure, matey, and thank you so very much for asking me and for honoring me with your great hosting on your page and as your interviewee. And before we go, matey, there's one thing that I want to say, because
Sure.
people watching the webinar, people watching you and me, people looking in from outside might be a little bit skeptical. And you know what? It is totally fine to be skeptical. That is human nature. It is perfectly normal. What I say to people is, keep a very open mind about it all. Don't close your eyes. Don't let your skepticism blind you. Don't let your skepticism crush you or block you from taking the next step. I mean, there is only one way that you're ever going to find out if this business is for you or not, and that is to get involved. So when you watch the webinar, like I said, it's your choice, yes or no, plain and simple. You cannot say, well, maybe. The example that I like to use, Matey, is you're either a smoker or you're not. You cannot be a maybe smoker. So
Yeah.
similarly, you cannot be a maybe business person. You are either in it or you are not in it. Plain and simple. But you know what? Keep an open mind. Be skeptical all you like. But at the end of the day, do your due diligence. Ask us for a testimonial, or I show. In Canada we have what's called a T4A, Matey, and that is your official tax document for income tax purposes. I mean, you and me and thousands just like us, we pay tax on every cent we earn. There's nothing shady about this. It is all fully open. So when the end of the year comes each year, we get what's called a T4A, and that comes as an official record of our earnings. And I mean, I have emailed my T4A to people that are somewhat nervous and say, well, Helen, I just want to make $3,000 a month. Can I do that? Well, I don't know. It depends on what you put in. It's directly proportionate. So if you're going to work, 2 minutes a day, probably you're not going to make $3,000 a month. But with me, Matey, like I said, I've been in it now almost 4 years, and I put in, between, and I've advanced considerably. But I put in an hour to 3 hours per day every day. And you know what it depends on? It depends on notifications on Facebook. It depends on emails. It depends on, but I mean, it's minimal, not like traditional employment.
Yes.
So anyway, with that, again, Mary, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm really honored. So yeah, thank you, everyone who are watching this. You have heard Alan.
Thank you to our audience.
Yes, he's the very experienced businessman now. He's become the digital business owner. Okay, so yeah, let's say bye to everyone. Have a nice weekend. You too, Alan.
Bye-bye,
Bye-bye.
everybody. Bye-bye. Have a great weekend.